Why don't we do something that I haven't really had a lot of time to think about, but has been on the plate for a while now?
You don't fuck with a god.
What's going on, nomads, party people, and strangers everywhere, and I'm sorry that this installment of Lion's Rant is a little bit late. I had to properly go over the subjects that I've been kind of approaching on my own front that are inspired by two very prolific people across the web. Where the first video I'm going to be coming out for you guys right now is from Lindsay Ellis's video of Dear Stephanie Meyer.
Dear Stephanie Meyer, I am sorry.
Now, if you guys don't remember who Lindsay Ellis is, you'll probably remember her more as Nostalgia Chick, aka one of the big prolific people from Channel Awesome back when it was that guy with the glasses.com. You know, before she and a couple other people quit. It's a long, boring story that I don't really want to make a video about, so let's just continue. And from the previous video that I've seen from her, it's touching bases on Stephanie Meyer's whole big thing involving Twilight that first hit the shelves back in good old 2008, 2009, so 9-10 years ago. That sounds about right. And the thought came to my mind about a lot of people trying to blatantly say it was just from popular backlash or people that didn't read the novels, but I'm gonna actually give this whole video my actual reasons why I hate Twilight in general that isn't from a popular standpoint.
I did not see that coming.
Now, to give some context into all the stuff, I've actually read and seen all of the Twilight memorabilia stuff from the books and from the movies. I've read all 4 books, did not try to look into Edward's perspective because I was already done at that point, and I've seen all the movies for one reason or another. So I've covered all that sort of stuff, so I'm not just jumping into this like I'm trying to jump onto a bandwagon to hate something. That is by far the most asinine idea I've ever heard in my life. But from my own perspective, I'm going to be looking at this not as a vampire fan or someone that openly hates Stephanie Meyer. That whole thing is all done after I finally grew up and just founded my own actual structure of things to go on. I'm going about this whole hatred thing as writer to writer and why this whole thing disgusts me.
That actually makes sense.
Now we got all that stuff out of the way, let's finally dive in with point the first, which is that Bella's character wasn't really that well written, and I'm not blaming this on stereotypes, tropes, or even her being a role model. Bella, in the same regards as, I would say, Juliet and Romeo and Juliet, aren't really characters. They're more like just small little cardboard cutouts that people wanted to use as a literary device to further on a plot that they wanted to do, whether it's for their own unique message or for their own unique romantic subplot or whatever they wanted to do as an insert. She wasn't an actual character to be emulated, to be idolized, to be studied, to be loved or hated. She was made as a cardboard cutout that really doesn't belong. And I'm kind of going about this after raising 2 daughters myself to see what they have from their own unique friends, how they are as unique individuals, and just watching my youngest daughter now grow up, I see that they have their own unique personalities, having their girly moments, their strong moments, where they want to be strong and independent, but when they also want to lean on people for help and aid, how they are romantic, but they're also very angry and aggressive about certain things. I'm not looking at it as someone that is going in blind from a parent's perspective, because I've seen my kids grow up, and I'm still watching them grow up as time goes on. But I'm taking note into how many different people could see this as not being a real character that should be analyzed and compared to women of any age. If it's a teenager, we all know that teenagers are moody. They're not happy with certain stuff, and if you push them away for so long to just do something into a bad relationship that you don't approve of, or to join up with this group that you don't want them to do it, they're gonna do it in spite of you because it's an innate action. That's how most people perceive stuff in their teenagedom, as an act of rebellion. That's not really something that is groundbreaking science, because most teenagers have done this. Hell, I've done this, and I'm not even ashamed of what I've done. But I will say that this was not a strong character because of a cardboard cutout just used as an insert of bland material, of bland writing and bland actions that don't really lend to anything other than, yeah, we used a cardboard cutout of a teenage girl to supplement herself into a fantasy story, and this is what we're going to be doing. This is all the stuff we're laying out, which will lead into part 2. The implications that the real romance comes from either psychological abuse or technically physical / mental abuse. Or just abuse in general, because this book has 2 big examples of douchebags getting what they want because they're hot in the eyes of certain people. I'm not in that whole team of Team Edward and Team Jacob, because both of those little boils are fucked up. Edward, the, quite frankly, prototype for all things in the modern era of emotional and mental abuse, of you can't do this and I'm trying to command you not to do it, I'm leaving you to make you not do this, so forth and so on. That is pretty much the hallmark of trying to have a Stockholm Syndrome relationship, where you're going to be dependent on the person because they own you so vigorously and so painfully, to the point where you don't even have an identity, where you don't even have a say or an actual real thought in your head other than you love them because they control you, because they've done something so horrendously horrible or done something that you can't really let go of, that you're just stuck to them because of that whole mental or emotional abuse that you can't shake. That is a hallmark for something that isn't really a relationship. That's a red flag to seek help. Find a real person to be with that's not this. You don't deserve to have an emotionally / mentally abusive boyfriend. But then there's also the other side of the spectrum of abuse, which comes from Jacob. He is very much a forceful, aggressive abuser that's also very verbally abusive. The moment he starts getting with his shape-shifting powers, not werewolf, shape-shifting powers, he becomes very much a dominant aggressive type that many people have seen in their lives, that would be beating their wives, their sisters, their girlfriends, anyone female, and just try to berate them for their own unique choices of trying to be independent, but try to force themselves onto themselves because they feel like they're the greater man. They feel like they're the nicer guy in comparison to the ones that just manipulate you emotionally and mentally. That leads you into a very shocked and very stagnative state of not trying to find someone that's good, but you're caught between 2 parallels of which is the lesser evil, the one that's pretty much holding you by your emotions and mental tethers, or the one that's pretty much berating you with every single choice and will force themselves onto you until you end up a rape victim, or probably their next big murder case if they lose control. Neither one is a very good interpretation about what romances should be, because not all romance is this way. Are there people that get dragged into emotional / mental / physical / verbal abuse? Yes. But there's always a better alternative than just trying to go with the darker outcome. You could always dilute the path to find something that's a lot brighter and will give you a happier ending that doesn't come from oh, I've been abused so long, well maybe I can change them by just simply secreting myself into their lives, try to commit suicide, force myself into being part of their own race or credence, and then afterwards, they're all mine.
That's disturbing.
That was by far probably the most insulting thing I've ever seen about how to treat romances, since I've seen both Wuthering Heights' first act, as well as seen everything of Romeo and Juliet, and many other things in real life. That was blasphemous and disgusting. But that goes into part 3 about why I hate Twilight. Now, I'm not gonna say this as a vampire fan. If you guys want to have a full-blown thing, I'll talk to my big sister Sally about doing something of a why vampire fans don't like Twilight. I'll definitely do that. But as a mainstay thing from a literary perspective, this was by far probably the weakest interpretation about how to handle vampires in years. Where there's some strong points, yes. Like the mental manipulation stuff with telekinesis or precognition, retrocognition, or trying to see stuff from within the womb or just through touch to be able to communicate through telepathy, and also elemental manipulation. That was a very amazing bit of stuff that you could do for vampires that not a lot of people have done, but the lack of trying to progress all of that stuff into a worthwhile interpretation to stuff that could be interesting is diluted because they're not really presented that well until several books in, when we're not even shown that vampires could be anything more than either vegan vampires that honestly couldn't sustain themselves that long, or the evil guys that just happen to be evil because they're the traditional vampires we all know from lore. Along with the fact of the whole sparkling thing, which is still a stupid interpretation about the whole thing of if they stand in the sunlight, they don't burn, they just sparkle, since it's kind of a stupid way to interpret that. Seriously, why have them be diamonds instead of just... I don't even bother. I'm not even gonna bother with that sparkling nonsense today. So I guess the final thing I'm gonna go into is just the final and fourth point of this entire thing about why I actually hate Twilight. That's not from a backlash reason. I hate this novel, this whole saga in general, because I feel like Stephenie Meyer, because she had a lot of talent before going into this, and I've heard the reviews from her other books that she made before Twilight, and even certain stuff of like some unpublished short stories and poems and whatnot, Stephenie Meyer does have somewhat of a vision. I'm not going to take that away from her. She does have talent and credence from what she wants to do and how she wants to present a story. So to take that into account to then go into Twilight, after this whole big reflection, it honestly feels like she wasn't even trying to make something good to begin with.
What?
It honestly felt like she wanted to simply make something on a whim because she felt like it was the smarter option for her career move to simply make a shitty story of vampires and shapeshifters fighting over who's gonna be dating this cardboard cutout that's not really a good interpretation for women to find as a role model or brain candy, but as simply a small little totem into this big story of fictional characters that anyone could see is a dangerous interpretation, as an extreme that is very much hidden in society about why you shouldn't go into all these extremes just to find true romance unless you're ready to brave through it. Oh! It honestly was by far some of the stupidest choices I've ever seen from someone that shows so much promise from prior works and then post-Twilight works that does have merit, but just decided to shit the bed with it. And the only reason I'm able to finally go to this conclusion is because after all this time and reading other young adult novels in my spare time, just write up some new stuff for you guys here and there on not only the internet, but also for some short story stuff and a few screenplays for independent movies I have scheduled to come out in the 2020s. It's that comparing it to stuff like Sherilyn Kenyon or Rick Riordan, Amanda Hawking, J.K. Rowling, And I'll even give credence to the writer of The Selection and even the writer of the Divergent trilogies. I still fucking hate you, The Selection. You and the rest of your trilogy and your continuation story are still as awful as the first time I picked your ass up. You are still terrible, you are still garbage. Oh god, my head. There were various things that were bad about all these stories, but the only big difference was that these stories actually tried to be compelling. They tried to make a real merit for themselves, that even if it had certain flaws here or there, for all the fans to see, they were actually giving their full-blown heart into all of these narratives. All the stuff that J.K. Rowling's been doing, aside from the Cursed Child play, was an entire good merit that started off this big train for people to want to read again when they were simply still in elementary school, to follow the story of Harry Potter and his friends, as well as trying to give a good insert into this discrimination sort of standpoints, with Hermione still trying to fight for not only her own rights as a half-human, half-magical creature, but for the house elves to get their own independence rather than being slaves. Rick Riordan's whole thing with the Percy Jackson / Heroes of Olympus thing, actually taking children that normally get shoved aside or mistreated or neglected by society because they have certain different ailments that make them not as normal as everyone around them, into just natural heroes that save the day over and over again, even if they're fearing what's going to come, and if the challenges themselves get so overwhelming that they don't know what to do, but still strive to win at the end of the day. That is an inspiring tale to go forth with. Amanda Hawking, she took that route that Stephenie Meyer tried to do with Trolls, and it actually became something of a self-aware novel afterwards, to show that you don't have to go with the toxic, very dangerous sort of emotional / physical / verbal / mental abuse to find a happy ending. You can find it from someone that literally tries to get to know you for you, not trying to get with the first person that you meet that ends up being very stalkerish and very abusive, not with your gay best friend who's very physically abusive, but with the guy that you literally want to get to know. And I'll even try and go as far as to say The Selection, along with Divergent, tried to show a little bit into how to make real characters actually meld into a story. Were this situation something I would approve of? Not really. But at least they tried to give real characters that tried to go through their whole narratives, their whole journeys, to find out how to find their own real solutions, to find out how they could get from point A to point Z and not lose a lot of lives, even if they struggle with that midpoint. And that, in essence, is one of the biggest defining factors behind why I hate Twilight. It's not that it's a terrible story that should be mocked for all eternity. No, we got 50 Shades of Grey and that's entire mess from E.L. James to worry about. No. This is literally just a narrative about what happens when you don't really give your all, but phone it in and try to hide behind, oh, I'm not trying to be a bad writer. I'm literally just trying to make my own niche in the world by just simply making it so people can relate to the story. Even though a lot of the stuff that Bella kind of does ranges on the, oh my god, are you really this stupid? Why would you do this? Why? Why did you get dropped on your head as a baby? Why are you this dumb? Just why? Why do this to yourself? Do you hate life this much? Why do you do this? Cause guys, I'll be here to say this for you, even if you're not gonna be comfortable saying this. It's better to finally go full throttle with what you really want to do with a narrative, to what you really want to do for your characters, what you really want to do for your situation, so you can make the story that you've always wanted. Don't hide behind what you feel like is the end-all be-all solution to what people will buy. Your unique story will be the hallmark that will give you fans, not something that you feel like your publisher or your editor will approve of. What you yourself enjoy, what you yourself are passionate, what you yourself are ecstatic and elated to write about, to tell the world for. Because not everything that glitters is gold.
Fascinating.
Now you guys can either take what I'm saying with a grain of salt to be like, you know what, he may have some points here. Or you could be like, yeah, I see what you're saying, and we can debate this adult to adult. We can do that sort of level as individual to individual. But if you want to start spouting out some drama about how this is self-hatred and how I don't know what I'm talking about and how this has no merit whatsoever in the most disrespectful manner, you guys already know I only have one thing for you all, and that's not words. That's this.
I don't got a lot of patience. Funny, cause I got the remedy. All of my enemies showing their faces. They trying to get rid of me. They want the end of me. Woo! Goodness gracious, but they gon' pick up a blade. I'm feeling like Jason.